All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of Chasing Alpha. We've got Chasing Alpha Insights today, and we've got I'm very proud and it's my privilege to bring you Rob Viglione. He's the CEO of Horizen Labs and the president of Horizen. How are you, Rob?
Very, very well, Dean. Thank you for having me. This
Well,
is, in honor of this opportunity to talk with you, being a longtime member of our community, I have one of our original T-shirts here
all
that I'm
right.
wearing
That's
from the Zen Cash days.
hopefully you don't get in trouble.
Exactly.
That's quite actually like it, man. It's quite cool, man. Like
Right?
reminiscent, very nostalgic.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, the cut is perfect. It's tight around the biceps.
Oh yes,
It's
yes.
exactly what you need.
You got to accentuate the buys and the tries. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And just before I forget, I want to just congratulate you on becoming a new, new father actually.
Thank you
Um,
very much. It's I'd
yeah,
say the most exciting part of my life right now.
that's right. And I mean, kudos to you juggling, kid and also, your Horizon obligations, which is pretty intense, So good on you, man. Like,
Well,
yeah,
I have a ridiculously good team at work and a ridiculously amazing wife at home. So life's
helps.
good.
Definitely helps
Yes,
to have a support
absolutely.
system.
Yeah.
Now, I just wanted to before we get started, I wanted to make it the community aware that this full disclosure, I have Zen, and I am an investor in Zen in terms of token wise. However, this is not a paid interview at all, and everything is basically for the benefit of the community. Um, we're going to be asking questions. We're trying to be as transparent as possible with the community, so I hope you guys appreciate it.
And full transparency, I also own Zen and I'm a Zen shill. I love the
Thank
project.
thank goodness.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hey, you wouldn't get that from Charlie Lee, right? I think he sold all this. Like, so that's a bit of a
We're all
that's
different.
that's right. The first question I have here, we'll just get right down to it. So what is the Horizon? Basically, if you can take us through the unique value proposition of Horizon versus, thousands of other cryptocurrencies on the market at the moment. What are you guys offering at the moment?
All right, that's a foundational question. Do you mind if I experiment with a new marketing message that we're trying to piece together? I don't know if
Oh,
you're on our Discord, but we have some really good community input on basically how we should brand ourselves or how we describe the project. So it is, and bear with me, guys, but you can be part of the experiment. Horizen is a blockchain technology platform empowering users to transact and communicate securely through Sphere, our flagship application. Horizen's native cryptocurrency Zen provides optional privacy using advanced zero-knowledge cryptography, and our innovative sidechain implementation and software developer toolkit enables development of secure and scalable blockchain applications utilizing the robust Horizen ecosystem. So a lot to unpackage there. I'll just state it very simply. We have a very robust blockchain ecosystem that is privacy preserving and massively scalable with our sidechain architecture. So our approach to blockchain is to really to be a blockchain of blockchains and to be very generalizable, but very specific on our mission. And our mission is to preserve privacy, really for transactions and also for data for people. So really we want to be a developer ecosystem such that people can develop applications and all sorts of business use cases that sort of flip upside down the old business model of harvesting people's data. We want people to harvest their own data. And we have a great technology stack to make that possible with blockchain, with zero knowledge, and with sidechains.
okay. That's quite a lot to take in. Yeah,
Totally
that's good.
convoluted. I'm not a marketing guy at all.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the fact of privacy, a lot of people, even at work, my day job when I was before I started this, a lot of people would tell me, oh, privacy, that's great. People, it's people's fundamental right. However, I'm not doing anything wrong. Why do I need to be aware of privacy? Why do I need, to be worried about privacy issues? Um, and I guess one of the things I can point out, I mean, even a few days ago, I think Google got busted for and fined $200 million, which is not a lot, for harvesting, YouTube um, algorithms for kids. So
Mhm.
kids who are around 6 years old, they're basically being pushed, marketing material from Hasbro, Mattel, basically whatever their interests are, depending on their viewing patterns, which is, I think it's unethical to exploit kids like that. And
Yep.
that's one of the reasons I can think of off the top of my head. Do you have anything to say about that issue?
I for sure do. And I look at it in two dimensions. In the first dimension you touched on, privacy is a fundamental human right. And we can go into philosophical or political economy type reasons for why that's important. But the second strand that I look at this, and from a business perspective, is that privacy has economic value now, or maybe more succinctly, data has more value than it ever has in history, and that's growing exponentially. So I think now we're starting to realize that we can have new business models that preserve privacy and flow the rewards or the economic rewards of the data to the users, to the people that generate such data. Now, I'm a believer in both strands, and really we have two organizations within the Horizen ecosystem right now. We have the nonprofit, who really, the mission there is really to promote privacy as this fundamental human right, and we have the for-profit Horizen Labs that we're commercializing opportunities that preserve privacy for users.
Okay, so basically allowing, say, a corporation, for-profit or not-for-profit corporation, utilizing the blockchain, Horizen side chains, to actually set up their own whatever. Can you just touch more on that? I just want to get my head around how that work.
I'll give you one huge use case that is basically our first commercial application. So really, what we're doing is we're going to be launching this new technology basically in a month from now, where we go live with our alpha on the sidechain protocol and the SDK, so that developers can use it. But we're going public as well with the first commercial use case, which is a large digital invoicing kind of record system. So basically, we're working with a partner that controls about a third of digital invoicing in a Latin American country. So a third of invoicing that goes through this country goes through this company, and we're building a platform using them as the first customer, and then extending it out to the rest of the marketplace to publish record of invoices. So an invoice gets created, and then immediately a blockchain record of the invoice gets created. Now, our technology using zero knowledge means that we can broadcast the fact that an invoice exists, and without broadcasting the specifics of the invoice. For instance, the merchant that issues the invoice, the person has to pay it, the receiver of the funds, the amount, and then you can have a time series of this type of data, and we preserve the privacy of this data, which is really important because you may not want your competitors to know, exactly what you're invoicing, when, how, and so forth. But you may have other parties in your ecosystem, say financiers of the invoices, people that do factoring, for instance, that need to know certain things about, what you're doing, the fact that an invoice exists, has it been financed yet or not, and then maybe some characteristics of the firm that's doing this. And you can basically build composite profiles of firms over time based on their invoicing, patterns. Have they paid their invoices? Have they paid them on time? Or are they typically delinquent, and so forth? So there's a whole bunch of stuff that now we can start doing in a zero knowledge fashion, because we have that type of technology that enables a marketplace to exist that currently has all of these frictions that hold it back. And it's huge. So and to put this in context, the order of magnitude that we're looking at is hundreds of millions of transactions per month. Which, if you look at Bitcoin, the last 10 years of history for Bitcoin and Ethereum, we're looking at about 500 million transactions that have ever been broadcast over these networks, and that would be a few months worth of usage of the system. So it's pretty enormous in its capacity, and solving a real economic problem that exists today, which I think is the best part of this use case.
Would this be kind of interfering with the existing Horizen, the main chain? I mean, I know that it'll be on the side chain, but how would that, in terms of, I guess, and touching the next topic would be, I guess, block DAG, because how would you achieve that kind of scaling, with the traditional blockchain infrastructure?
Right. So the way that we do this actually is the first sidechain protocol that we're releasing is one that's actually proof of stake. So think of a hub and spoke model where the main chain is proof of work right now, and we have a certain throughput through there that would not be able to handle this, quite frankly. This would far exceed the capability of the main chain right now. It's a process. So what we do or what we're doing is we're creating a side chain that's proof of stake. It's based on the Ouroboros-Krauss consensus model, which is basically having like an instance of Cardano as one of our side chains. And that itself has massive throughput capability. So something that could do like 100,000 transactions a second in terms of throughput, but that wouldn't all be broadcast piecemeal to the main chain. Actually, all these transactions get bundled, aggregated into slots. So think of it as kind of a block of the side chain, then gets broadcast to the main chain at certain block intervals or slot intervals. And it's just a proof of the transactions that have occurred on the side chain are valid and the consensus rules have been met. That's all that goes back to the main chain. And that's how it can scale so significantly.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Okay. And I guess, again, I just want to tell the viewers out there that you might be wondering why invoices. Well, invoices are basically a legal documentation, and it ideally should be immutable, which means you cannot go back and change what's on the invoice. And as working in the industry in my past, kind of a few positions in my career, I was an accountant, so we had issues with, whether changes were made. And you have some softwares like Xero that can actually, they can actually notify you when changes are made, but nothing to stop, say, Xero from making changes and deleting those historical records altogether. So this would obviously, I know it's not a big thing in terms of the end user, in the crypto community, but it's a big thing in overall market penetration and also the actual, real use case in the corporations in a space.
No, that's exactly right. And that's such a good way of putting it. And now we need to bridge from the blockchain world, which is such a small fraction of the population, to more mainstream world where all the economic activity takes place right now. And our goal should be to find these economic frictions that we can use this technology to solve, which goes to the fundamental question of what is blockchain good at solving? And you mentioned immutability. Well, that's great because we have basically a massively replicated database that is called blockchain. But then it's also this system that solves the trust issue for people. So you wouldn't need a blockchain for many, many use cases. In fact, you should just use a database. But like this example that I mentioned, if we're looking at a marketplace where you have many participants that say are competitors, or maybe they have antagonistic, goals, and then maybe you have a government that needs to oversee all of this stuff, and no one trusts each other within the system. Well, we have the technology now that can actually solve that in a way where you don't have to rely on, the integrity of any particular participant because they're all playing by published rules that no one can violate.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really good, and thanks for that, touching on that, Rod. It was very kind of all-encompassing explanation of how it can be utilized in a kind of real world scenario situation. So moving on, I just want to touch base on the existing or current landscape of the cryptocurrency industry. So as you know, we've had a brutal kind of last 18 months. Starting from
I'm well
January.
aware.
Well aware. That's right. And I guess I want to just discuss with you what's your opinion on Bitcoin and then the ongoing, I guess, increasingly gaining market share. I think this morning I checked, it was just above 70%, and the altcoin market share obviously has been declining. And it's obviously quite apparent when you look at the price decline. So you've got some of the earlier projects, some of them are fairly good projects, have lost over 95% of their value. So like where are you guys placed, and what's your opinion on this whole kind of saga unfolding at the moment?
Yeah, so it makes complete sense to me if you look at the marketplace with the analogy of when the stock market's crashing, people pile into treasury bonds. Right, so that's kind of what's happening right now. And Bitcoin would be like our version of government security, which by no means is it. It's ridiculously volatile. But I wouldn't take it to mean that Bitcoin is technologically superior, or there's something going on with the Bitcoin ecosystem that is just dominating everyone else. Because there's a ton of value being created in other ecosystems, ours included, but also look at projects like Ethereum that are just I think Ethereum very clearly dominates Bitcoin on, say, like a developer ecosystem or a
Yeah.
broader ecosystem. But Bitcoin's dominating, right? So what explains that? I think it's this safe haven effect of Bitcoin is the first. It's the first, has the first mover advantage. It has much more recognition, and when you have funds that are, or anyone really new to the space entering, they enter through Bitcoin. And then when things look like they're collapsing, everyone kind of retrenches into Bitcoin, and you have this sort of sinusoidal wave effect where it does reverse at some point. And I think there are way too many good things going on in different projects for this to just last forever, where Bitcoin's the only one that it is constantly gaining a market share. So I'll give you an example on our end, which I take to mean that the market just is not paying attention to a certain segment. And maybe Bitcoin or some top 10 or 5 projects, who knows, or investors are paying attention to right now. But in our case, we're ranked somewhere like 120 in the marketplace in terms of market value, like market cap.
Yeah.
If you look at kind of evaluation standards, so there's something called the Fundamental Crypto Asset Score, FCAS, which I'm very proud to say we're number 17 in the entire industry in terms of our FCAS score, which is like, if the analogy to stocks would be like an S&P rating or a Moody's rating, where we're ranked very high. We're ranked, we're A rated. So you can consider that like investment grade. We're top 20 in terms of projects, but we're top 120 in terms of market cap. So something's missing. And on one hand, I could say it's really disheartening because we've been working our butts off for years now and making so many advances in so many different directions, like in our technology. We're releasing a major tech innovation next month, our sidechain technology. It's huge. Our products are very good, relatively speaking, in the industry. I think top quality. Sphere by Horizen, our flagship application or wallet, is, I think, top notch, relatively speaking. Our team is pretty awesome. We have the backgrounds of our team members, the engineering quality that we have, the resources that we have at play, our institutional partnerships with, say, DCG, Digital Currency Group, Grayscale Investments created a Horizen Investment Trust because they recognize us as top 5 projects in their minds. There's a disconnect. So you've got all these things going on one hand, but a certain segment of the marketplace isn't paying attention. So is this a value opportunity of a lifetime, or is this going to be persistent? I have no idea. That's why I never give investment advice on these things. But I do like to look at it that we might be the type of project that, say, a Warren Buffett would invest in if he cared about crypto. And we know he doesn't. But if you look at it from this value perspective, we have a very high quality project. We're constantly expanding our ecosystem, our value propositions, the products that we're bringing to market, our team's growing. Everything is green except for our price.
And that's right. And I think, like what you said, the market, I mean, just in my opinion, the market's not rewarding the massive infrastructure building that's happening at the moment across various projects. However, they are pricing in the risk. And I think if you look at some other, like, I think the one you mentioned, the FCAS, I think that's from my understanding, CoinMarketCap affiliation.
Right. Yeah, so it's a company called Flipside Crypto that partners with CoinMarketCap. So if you go to CoinMarketCap and you look at rating, that's you're exactly right.
That's actually quite good because it's big news, because to be ranked 17 out of what, 5,000 projects out there at the moment, it's a massive deal, right?
Exactly. And I'll say this: I have no idea. What our nominal price should be, or our nominal market capitalization. I have no idea. But I can tell you, relatively speaking, I would say we're ridiculously undervalued. In fact, Flipside Crypto, the company that comes up with that rating system, they ranked us yesterday as the number 4 most undervalued project in the industry. So really? Out of everything, they said Horizen is the number 4 most undervalued project out there.
Okay, that's very interesting. Yeah, I'll look into that and share that amongst the community. Thanks for the heads up.
That's cool. And on one hand, it's a little insulting to think that we're so relatively undervalued. And again, like I said, I have no idea what the nominal price should be. But relative to projects that I know don't have any activity going on, like no development activity, no product maintenance, like nothing. And we're constantly refining everything and growing significantly and innovating.
Yeah.
Relatively speaking, we should not be where we are rank wise.
Yeah, got it. Perfect. Yeah. Okay. And I mean, do you think, I mean, so you do believe that there is a healthy future for altcoin, some altcoins, not all. I mean, there are a few that have actually, I guess I'm not going to say pulled an exit scam, but they just basically decided to shut down due to the
Right.
enormous sell pressure of the market and just them not having
Right.
enough funds to proceed with their operations. And it's tough out there. If you like, one actually sounds very similar to Horizen. It's called Horizen State. It's from Australia actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Aussie company. They actually shut down about 2-3 weeks ago. It was on
Wow.
the Twitter that they're being forced shut down due to there's a funds side of things, and there's primarily this legal issue that's happening at the moment, which they cannot. Unfortunately, they don't have the funds to fight the lengthy court battle, so they've actually
Wow.
shut down, which is great because when I type in Horizen on Google just to get the kind of interest and everything like that. Horizon State always came up top. So
Seriously,
hopefully,
wow.
yeah.
So
So
Google must
Horizon.
tailor their results because it was different for me. We're always
Oh,
top
really?
of mind. Yeah,
Oh,
but you should be
yeah,
using DuckDuckGo anyway.
yeah. That's right. That's right. I usually use Chrome just to kind of see what the trend is. Like, what if I type in a keyword, what am I getting?
Right.
Just to get the SEO kind of insight.
I'm
Um,
really curious about that right now. Let's type in
yeah.
Horizon. Fix that. But I'm DuckDuckGoing it though.
Okay.
Let's see. Yeah, we definitely need to boost our SEO.
Yeah, that's cool.
Wow.
And I
Yeah.
guess I just moving on. Like you touched on quite a key development milestone, which is the sidechain SDK that you're launching in about a month.
Right.
Um, is that the primary product that you've got in your pipeline at the moment? And what else do you have kind of leading on to the end of the year, Christmas, New Year, say 2020, prior to the halving of
Mhm.
Bitcoin? Do you guys have things happening, um, you know, throughout the following year as well?
Yeah, so the big thing is the sidechain SDK. That's our biggest product yet. I mean, that's really our core innovation in this industry. I would say our biggest innovation and what really makes us stand out. So really happy for that. I think that's going to be a big splash. We do have ongoing product improvements, so new features for say like Sphere by Horizen. We have another release scheduled, and then also something that I haven't mentioned is we actually have Sapling integrated into our code base. So
Okay.
Sapling is the big improvement on basically like snark computations, the whole zero knowledge computation aspect, say like privacy preserving transactions on our system. We have a big upgrade that's been integrated, but we haven't made that live yet in our code base because of a kind of a known issue. And the issue being that because computation is so cheap now, it's easier to spam the network. So
Right.
basically, Sapling is a victim of its own success. It's such a great innovation, but we feel that we want to do an augmentation to the technology so that we reduce the ability to spam or DDoS our network. So anyway, that could be part of our kind of last code release towards the end of the year.
Okay. Okay. And any kind of I guess privacy related projects or partnerships that are coming on in the following year, 2020? What do we have to look out for? Spill the goss.
So the big one would be the invoicing marketplace, basically going live. I think for me that's the most important thing that we're doing on the commercial side, and that's going to drive, like I said, hundreds of millions of transactions into the ecosystem, which is huge because that's real economic demand.
Yeah.
And then going beyond that, we're actually looking at generalizing that and creating an auction marketplace for invoices. So basically a factoring marketplace to complement the work in Latin America that we're doing. And we have a partner right now called Desk, actually, where their business model, and they've been successful in Argentina so far, is to bring factoring marketplaces to stock exchanges in different countries. So now we are their blockchain partner, and we're
Okay.
looking to do that for Right now, we're pitching it to an Eastern European country in October. So we'll see if there's some success there.
Okay, that's exciting. And
Yep.
is that already, was that covered in the last monthly update?
No, it wasn't.
So this is
It
this is
wasn't.
this is
Yeah.
this is hot
This is
information,
breaking
guys.
news. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And this is always the problem that our BD team and marketing teams and legal sometimes aren't happy with me for mentioning things ahead of formal announcements. But
I'm very happy that you spilled the
yeah.
goss on this channel.
So, but hey, the news is we have a partner that has a lot of success in this factoring
Yeah.
marketplace environment. We don't have a contract with, say, a stock exchange yet, but
Yeah.
we have a partner that has experience getting such partnerships.
Oh, that's good news. Something to look
Yeah.
forward to.
Yeah.
And I guess, I mean, you touched on earlier with the sidechain, obviously the most apparent and most, I guess, closest news that's due to hit soon. Why is that? I mean, a lot of people don't understand what it is and how it works. But if you can kind of sum it up in terms of why is this such a big deal for the viewers?
Right. So blockchains don't scale very well. And there are different technologies like DAG, this directed acyclic graph technology that is supposedly, one of the next generations or evolutions of blockchain tech. But what a blockchain is, what it does is it bundles transactions into these things called blocks, and then in serial, basically one at a time, broadcasts these blocks of transactions to a globally distributed network. And there's latency across such a network. There's synchronization, challenges that come along with that. And we need to think, if we want to scale to make these systems actually have massive economic value going across them, we need to rethink their architecture. And this is exactly what we did. So we know, for instance, that Bitcoin had scaling issues. This was a very famous topic, 2 or 3 years ago, where they had block congestion. And no one really uses Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin is still in its infancy from a global perspective. It is not a globally dominant payment system by any means, and they already bumped up against a scaling limit. Ethereum had scaling issues with CryptoKitties in the sense that they had a massively successful game that was congesting the network. And we know that now, okay, if you have, as an example, this invoicing marketplace, and we're dealing with hundreds of millions of transactions a month, there's no way this would go through the throughput of major blockchain systems right now. And that's just one example, like one use case. Imagine having hundreds of such use cases in different industries. So why our sidechain system is such a big deal is because we create this kind of hub and spoke architecture that enables a blockchain of blockchains. So if we're ever going to really scale, we need to look beyond just the main chain technology, and we do want to improve our protocol to make that itself more scalable, but we can do all sorts of application specific stuff on their own dedicated sidechains. And that's what's exciting about it, that we actually have the technology now to really start incorporating real world use cases that scale.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. That was good. That was a good explanation. Thank you for that.
Yeah. And maybe I'll tell you why our sidechain is so special. And Alberto, in our weekly insider team call yesterday, and by the way, anyone listening to this that's interested, we do public team calls. Every week we have a team call that we've basically opened to the public, and we make a podcast out of it. So you can see how our team operates, the dynamics is pretty fun. But what Alberto mentioned, our chief architect yesterday, which is a great point. Our sidechains are special because, one, they're truly decentralized. There's no certifying node or basically certifier that has to say all sidechain traffic comes through me and I say it's valid or invalid. It's actually fully decentralized, and we have a massive node network, the largest in the industry to actually process all of these transactions permissionlessly, completely permissionless. The second thing is it's fully generalizable in that it's consensus agnostic, meaning that we don't care what type of blockchain you run as a sidechain. We just care about that it conforms to the interface rules there. So there are other sidechain systems like Cosmos that basically create a single type of blockchain that you can replicate many times. Ours doesn't require you to basically restrict your blockchain to a particular type. In fact, you could run, theoretically, and we will do this, we'll integrate, say, like Hyperledger as an example. We could integrate Hyperledger onto our sidechain. So if you're an IBM client you don't have to run, set up your own nodes or run your own instance of Hyperledger. You could launch it on a sidechain, right? And leverage our massive system that we have right now in terms of infrastructure. We could build, say, Ethereum-like sidechains. We could build proof-of-stake sidechains like we're doing with the Cardano-like system. You could build sidechains in C++, in Scala, Haskell, Rust, whatever you want. So that's the beauty of it, is that it's decentralized and completely generalizable. So that can scale.
Okay, excellent. That's very good. And I guess I appreciate the fact that you guys are one of the only few are very transparent and basically in all that you're doing. And I think the weekly roll call is just one example of what you guys are doing that others don't. There's a lot of I guess obscurity and vagueness in terms of what the operations of various projects are and what they're doing on a daily basis. For me, as an example, we were having a joke the other day with Rod, my business partner, and we're saying, I wonder what these guys do, because they had tens of millions of dollars leading up to 2018, and a lot of them have converted that into fiat. What's driving them to now? And of course, you guys didn't have the ICO or the route, so you didn't have the luxury of kind of just disappearing overnight and pulling these things.
We did not have that luxury, right? Exactly.
No,
So we've had to bootstrap and be scrappy all along the way. But I'll tell you, that's made us better. Like, we've learned how to operate very efficiently and focus on priorities. And we're very transparent about it. Like you said, it's there aren't very many blockchain teams where you can see basically even on a daily basis. So we've actually opened our team workflows on Discord, where we've recently made our private team channels public, so that and we actually, you can look at what we're doing on a daily basis. So, and then you can listen in to our team calls weekly. So it's I think it's a new way of doing business in the 21st century.
I think it'll spread. It'll take time, but I think once people see the value of transparency and it brings more market awareness and more market participation as well as price. Once that's factored in, I think people will adopt it more and more. And I guess on that note, with Horizen, do you guys have plans to in the future release audited financial statements and reports and that kind of things?
So I'd say absolutely. I'm 100% for that. So we haven't done it yet, and all we've done so far is basically release an annual kind of by category how we've spent money, but it would be great, actually. I'm all for it. So right now we're filing our taxes in the US, so that's kind of a starting point where we brought in an accountant full-time, or not, I'm sorry, not full-time, but someone to lead the accounting team, to basically prep all of our financials so that we can submit taxes or tax paperwork. So that's the first step. And from there, then we can think about having audited financials and going to the next level. But so first of all, it's really hard. I guess it's harder than I imagined at first. In one way, it's like we have a multinational corporation dealing in many currencies. So it shouldn't be that hard. We just recently have new software, basically a new accounting system that does all of the tracking of all of our addresses over time to see where all funds have gone. That's the first step. And then then you have to put a dollar value to those on the timestamp for when they were actually used. And then from there, we're kind of aggregating that up to file our taxes, and then we can think about the next step. But yeah, I mean, in theory, I'm all for it, and I'd like to do it.
Excellent. I mean, bookkeeping, I can relate. It's a mission when it comes to cryptocurrencies. Like I've got 5 or 6 different journals that I keep on various exchanges, and there's a lot of I guess there's no clarity when it comes to taxation and whether the tax authority in Australia, they haven't released whether you can approach a last in first out. Like how do we actually measure value at that and at the year end? So it's. I mean, I think hopefully it will change and it will get better over time. But it's one of those pain points at the moment that we have to deal with. Right. And yeah, I mean, it's good. I mean, I guess one of the last touching points I had to share with you was obviously you touched on Sphere and it's basically the gateway to Zen.
Right.
one of the things that makes any wallet applications great is the ease of use and accessibility and security, right? So those three things.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys have plans to? And I think on that note, I think there's a note from Dash, which is another privacy coin, that their goal was to make their wallet as easy to use as, say, PayPal
Mm-hmm.
accounts or bank
Yep.
accounts. Are you guys working towards that same direction?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's so if you look at Sphere now, it compared to the wallets that we've had in the past, it is much more user oriented, user friendly, and really we designed it with users in mind instead of engineers in mind. So it's a huge step forward, but it's the first step. I completely agree with that. Now, in terms of the security, so this other very important element, right now, Sphere is a closed source project, meaning that we keep the source code private, and we
Right.
basically release the binaries so that users can download and install it like on their operating system. The plan there is actually to open source it, and so we're basically open sourcing it after the beta phase ends. And the timeline there is when we go from alpha to beta on the sidechain. It's really important. So Sphere, basically, we're going to open source to be the interface with our sidechain ecosystem. So that's the plan there. And I think that covers the other big aspect of security when you open source the code base. And now open source it's not like a be all end all, panacea of perfection.
Yeah.
Because you can open source your code base and now hackers can see a vulnerability and exploit it, right? But you hope that with more eyes on the code, there's more security long term. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So
no, that's
yeah,
good.
absolutely.
That's really good. So is that kind of so when do you guys foresee the open sourcing of the Sphere? Is it 2021 at some point or something?
No, 2020 for sure. Yeah, and I would say the early part. So
Okay.
where we want to go, this is me just speaking on my own, probably way out of turn because
Oh,
I
no, I'm not
haven't
gonna hold you to
talking.
account.
Yeah,
Don't worry.
exactly.
Yeah.
But what in my head, we're releasing the alpha for the side chain this next
Right.
month. So end of this month / first week of October, you'll see the alpha. From alpha to beta, I'm hoping by the end of Q1, we're getting into beta. And beta is really important because beta will be running on our main net, whereas
Yeah.
this will be running on a test net. So that's the really big and important thing there. But to have innovation on the sidechains and to make the sidechain ecosystem useful, we have to have Sphere by Horizen, a useful portal into that ecosystem. So in my mind, we have to open source it by then, which really means by the end of Q1 of next year. That's my
Right.
personal goal.
Yeah, no, that's good. And I guess with the Sphere, and it'll operate in terms of from a user perspective, it'll be very operational from I was gonna say Commonwealth Bank, but you wouldn't know what that bank is. But like a bank account, for example.
Yeah,
I don't know if you're aware
absolutely.
of the Australian banking applications, but I would imagine they'll
Not at
work very
all.
similarly. But they've got a very cool, I guess, Android and iOS platform now, which makes transmitting money or value, to other bank accounts within the same kind of same infrastructure, so Combank to Combank, instant.
Yep.
So then, I had a few questions from a few colleagues, and if Combank can do it instantaneously, why should I use crypto? That kind of, and of course,
Right,
they then
right,
touch on the
right,
fact that it was decentralized and
right,
all that. It's all
right,
centralized. So
right.
yeah, like keeping keeping that whole user friendly, user interface very friendly and easy to use is a primary focus for you guys, I'm guessing.
Absolutely. Oh, so you just reminded me, other big releases. So my plan is by next month, I also want to release a mobile version of Zero by Horizon. So
Okay.
we have that in works right now, and we just need to finalize. So we finalized design. I mean, the coding's all done. Basically, we had a code implementation of taking our desktop application and turning it into mobile, but mobile clearly from a user's perspective shouldn't mimic all of the features of a desktop app. So basically we pruned it down and we've gone through that pruning process, and now it's
Right.
in the final stages that we need to pump that out into the testing phase. But I really want that to go live. And to me, that's really important because we have really big, like real world new user acquisition campaigns that we want businesses and people to start using Zen. And I think mobile is absolutely critical to that. So I'm pushing the guys hard to release the mobile, and that'll be iOS and Android.
Oh, great. Yeah, because that's the other
Yeah.
question. It's Binance just released their iOS, 2 weeks ago.
Cool.
I think they pulled it on for some reason. But yeah, I mean, iOS and Android is, having both and is perfect, because then Rod can't use it.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's pretty
Totally.
good. Well, I think that's pretty much all the questions I had. Did you want to touch on anything else before we wrap this up?
No, I mean the plug that I always like to give at the end is if any of this sounds interesting, we very much invite people to join our community and participate. So we're going to have a whole bunch of different ways to participate in our ecosystem, including like a developer environment that we're setting up in coordination with Horizen Academy. So if you're on the technical side, you can participate that way, and we'll curate opportunities for you. If you're on, more of just wanting to participate and see what's going on in the ecosystem, come join our Discord. It's a fun group to see how we operate, and join our conversations.
And also Telegram, right? Because I mean, there's a lot of people
Yeah, that's how we met,
yeah,
right? Absolutely, yeah.
yeah.
So you'll find me every day on Telegram and Discord.
I gotta say, like, having your presence there, not many CEOs actually check the Telegram, let alone comment back. So having, if anyone out there that's watching this can actually go there and ask Rob a question directly, and then thank you for making yourself available, to the level that you have in the past, and he can answer your question directly, whether it's issues or questions or even tips.
Well, it's fun for me.
Yeah,
So how
exactly.
else do I get a pulse of the ecosystem without really being part of it?
And of course, when people have questions, and I'm sure that's how I started. I came through a bit of a naysayer, and I came back, and I was surprised and pleasantly surprised at the level of the down to earth approach that you and your team had, and that kind of made me kind of a long time. I've been there for over a year and a half now.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why I have
Yeah,
this old T-shirt for you.
exactly, exactly. Send one over to me.
This is a special occasion.
Oh, mate, that's good. Again, I would like to, on behalf of Chasing Alpha team and the community, I'd like to thank you, Rob, for your time. I know it's very valuable, your time, and yeah, I do appreciate it. And maybe we can have another, catch up sometime soon after the launch.
Thank you very much, Dean. I appreciate it, and absolutely.
All right. Well, from all of us, have a great rest of your day, and yeah, we'll talk soon. Cheers,
Cheers.
guys.